Welcome to another episode of FVTV, a special one, Monday, October the 5th. And that's exactly 100 days since Grand Master Richard Elkington took the chair. Do you remember that day, Richard?
Certainly do. In fact, I just can't understand where all the time's gone. It's 100 days already.
Yes, it is, since I think it was June 27th.
27th of June.
And a rare window when we were able to have 20 people in the building, and Graham Berry
that's right.
was throwing people out of the building to make sure that we complied with all the rules.
Absolutely. I think we were allowed 21 in the whole of the Eastbourne #1 lodge room. Yeah. Incredible, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
We'll probably go back to that situation, I imagine.
I guess so. Now, Richard, can you summarise what you promised to do on that day? What were your obligations?
My obligations were to, in fact, I gave some would say, very lengthy speech.
Well, what was the timing? I think you had it timed for 7 minutes, didn't you?
I had time for 7 minutes.
How long did it go?
21 and a half.
Oh, that's well done.
That's because I was too much ad-libbing, that's why. I talked about changing the culture of the craft.
Yep.
Changing the culture so that our governance was sound, so we could give confidence to the members that we were managing their money, their property well. I gave an assurance about placing an emphasis on education.
Yes.
So,
Richard, 100 days on, how are you going towards achieving some of those goals that you set out to do? Let's have a look at, say, the ethics side of things.
Yes, well, we've engaged the Ethics Centre to conduct some might describe it as an historic opportunity or a root and branch review. But we've asked them to look at our policies, our procedures, our practices, our compliance regimes, our risk, our audit processes, to give assurance to our members that this organisation, this wonderful fraternity that I'm very proud to be head of, is actually being governed well for the membership. So give them an assurance that their money is being well spent, well handled. And we're necessary at arm's length from the process.
Yeah. Richard, you spoke about the education side of things. Now, in 100 days since you took over, since you were invested and installed, education has taken off a whole new energy, and perhaps unexpectedly because of the COVID-19 situation.
Well, absolutely correctly. I mean, when we entered into COVID-19, the worry was, my goodness, how are we going to actually live the processes of looking after our own members? How are we going to connect with our members? What meetings can we hold? We can't meet to initiate candidates. We can't do any ceremony. But what we've actually discovered really in the last 6 months is that we are adapting extremely well. And one of the things we've adapted to is conducting a lot of our leadership training online, MAPS, preparation for mastership, mentor training, all being done online. I'm attending meetings, so I probably go to 6 or 7 lodge meetings a week, and we're seeing much more discussions about important Masonic subjects. We're seeing much more sort of formal lectures.
Well, you're in a rare position, aren't
absolutely.
you? Because you're the first Grand Master probably in the history of Freemasonry in Victoria who in his first 100 days hasn't been able to go physically to a meeting. And yet on the other hand, you've probably met and seen more Freemasons in that 100 days than any other Grand Master. It's a paradox.
Absolutely. I was able to live what I wanted to do. What I wanted to do was to avoid doing installations and spend the first 3 to 6 months talking with the members. And I've been able to do that, I think, reasonably successfully, and be part of some really great discussions with them, how to make the lodge experience better, how can we do things differently, how can we make lodge meetings more interesting. And my deputy, Tony Booker, has been very good at sort of leading that discussion. And so you're right, I have an historic opportunity to spread some positive messages about what the leadership of the craft is endeavouring to accomplish for the membership.
So
it's
a
not
lot of
not telling-
organisations
Yeah.
talk about fundraising. At the moment, you're primarily in the business of friend raising.
Well, we are. It's about me demonstrating, I think, leadership of our organisation. It's about encouraging people like VAT leaders, district coordinators, to take the lead, empower them to perform the task that's been allotted, to get out of their way, to let them get on with it. And similarly at lodge level, to take initiatives.
Richard, some of the things that are happening at the moment have happened because of COVID-19.
They have.
And peer support's one of them.
It is.
Ted Stevens.
Absolutely correct. I had this vision last year. How do we actually live the principles of brotherly love? And I thought, why don't we actually put together a resource team, a package of finance, psychological, counselling services, all together, a package of support we can actually initiate when a brother is in any sort of trouble. Because often we in lodges don't know how to deal with or even actually engage in a conversation with somebody who's distressed. And so the first plank of that I've been able to achieve, and that is Ted Stevens has offered to provide private counselling services to any member of the craft or their families who's in difficulty. We want to take this to further steps, doing psychological first aid for perhaps almoners or others in lodges who feel inclined or skilled to do that, and then ultimately build a sort of trained peer support system so that anyone in our lodges can go to a skilled and trained mate, if you like, who will know where to go, will understand the language to use, so it's safe. So this for me, this process that Ted started, he wants to extend it to embrace sort of financial support as well.
Well, just on that financial support, that's for the individual, and there are a lot of members out there hurting. JobKeeper has finished, and so for a lot of people, the hurt will just start from this month. They've been able to perhaps get some assistance up until now. But what about the financial health of our own organisation and the financial health of lodges? Where are we there?
We've taken from the organisational point of view, we made this conscious decision as a board in March to provide a capitation-free holiday, 6 months. I think as we are beginning to understand better, the revenue of Grand Lodge comes from three main sources. First one's capitation fees. The second one is investments, so investment returns. So capitation fees are down, investment returns in this climate are down, and of course there is the rental coming from tenants in our properties, and that's down as well.
Yeah. That's
on one hand. On the other hand, we gained a magnificent return from the Eastbourne, the investment there. So trying to get this balance between what's the aim of the organisation fundamentally? It's not to raise money, it's to provide a great lodge experience for our members. Yes. And so we've got to find the balance between expenditure and revenue. So we provide the services that our members expect. Now, on the lodge front, there is financial assistance available to members through the foundation, and I can't remember the exact amount. I think it was in the President of the Board's report on Wednesday night.
And at the foundation website,
yes,
there is information so that anyone can
correct.
Discreetly go to that website, find out the information, get the support of their lodge master and secretary, and make an application.
Absolutely correct. And there is a process within the commercial part of our organisation, so that if lodges or Masonic centres are in financial difficulties, they can seek redress for that, some help, support for that through firstly the Grand Secretary, then to Frank Warner and the finance team. So there is an avenue. There are avenues for assisting lodges, because we want to get through this pandemic with as little casualties in terms of resignations or lodges as is possible.
Yeah, Richard, you're putting a greater emphasis, giving a boost to ritual and ceremonial. You're putting together a team there that will report directly to you, as has been the case in the past. Could you tell us a little bit about that ritual and ceremonial initiative?
It's interesting. I was in a discussion recently at a lodge about the importance. One of the important things about Freemasonry, and sure, it's about brotherly love and support. But the traditional stuff, I think, is what our traditions is what appeals to a lot of members, and the fact that ritual and ceremonials largely remained unchanged, largely for 300 years. And so we've been through a situation where ritual and ceremonial reported as part of a Masonic learning volunteer action team. We've had to rethink about that. Ritual and ceremonial is very important, as is the role of Grand Inspector of Workings. And so the board has agreed to have the Ritual and Ceremonial Committee report direct to the Grand Master. Yeah. And I think that's, in fact, the right thing to do, because at the end of the day, the ritual and ceremonial is within my remit. I have to sign off any changes or variations anyway. And I think it emphasises really to our membership that I'm encouraging lodges not to be obsessive about aligning with the Book of Lodge Workings. It is the ritual in our Book of Lodge Workings is a strong guide to lodges.
So some will want to be
how to present it.
Some will want to be millimetre perfect. Others still want the vibe, as they said in the famous movie. So it's a case of finding a balance between those two, so that we still keep those principal ethics and principal traditions.
Yes, I consider myself a ritualist rather than a ceremonialist.
Yes.
But I think none of us at the end of the day, no Freemason wants to be part of bad ceremonial or wants to be part of presenting bad ritual and ceremonial. It's just we need to have some flexibility for how that's presented at lodge level to take account of the environment you're in and the people you've got.
Richard, we're 100 days on today from the big grand installation. Your journey is probably, as Grand Master, probably more likely to be 1,000 days or thereabouts. On the day that you were installed, we put out an FV news and we used the headline, "Happy Days are here again." You're still as happy as you were on day one?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I can't wait to get up every morning. There's something new every day. When I promised myself this is not a full-time job. This is not a full-time job, 2 days a week. Well, it's actually turned out to be a full-time job. It probably may not have been if we'd not been in COVID-19 situation. The fact is that I can attend all of these meetings that before I had to go to a face-to-face in Melbourne. I can attend them all quite effectively from my study.
So instead of one petrol tank a day, it's now one petrol tank a month, is it?
Correct, exactly right. So I'm going to lodge meetings sometimes twice a night. So probably 6 or 7 lodge meetings a week. I'm attending all sorts of committee and board and discussions during the day. And so, well, I mean, what am I doing right now? I'm cutting a video.
Richard, in summing up, a big part of your ethic is saying thank you to people.
Absolutely.
I think you wanted to mention a few thanks for your first 100 days, particularly to the membership as a whole.
Well, I do actually. Don't detect a lot of negativity out there. We're seeing lots of ideas generated for doing things better, even overcoming some of the restrictions. Like I've had 2 or 3 applications from lodges to conduct Remembrance Day ceremonies outside. I know some lodges are thinking about, when we can, having a lodge meeting outside before when we can, with larger numbers. So there's
Tyler's
lots
going to
of,
have a big job there, isn't he?
well, go back to 1999, we had a guy on a hill with a shotgun. So there's lots of things we can do if we want to think outside the square, think differently, because adaptation to changed environment is a thing we've been doing forever. And so we have to, so it begs the question, what's life going to be like?
Well, you and I have had a number of discussions about it being fun.
It is fun.
Yeah. And
that's why Tony and I don't take ourselves too seriously. We're not presenting, I hope we're not presenting a sort of pompous image. We're just ordinary blokes. I'm an engineer in the Latrobe Valley. And Tony's a Melbourne-based lawyer. And we've grown up in our own communities. We don't see ourselves any better than anybody else. We've just had an opportunity to be in a leadership role. And so it's not about ruling over people, it's about working with them, actually, and getting some joy by helping to make other people successful. That's what gives me the kicks. The fact that you're producing an FV News every day, and our membership volunteer action team has got all this enthusiasm in it for doing things differently. And our Masonic learning volunteer action team is putting all sorts of initiatives out for education and training better. And so it's really not about what I achieve, it's what I feel like in some ways facilitate the achievement.
Well, I know you're turning the spotlight around on others, but from the membership, thank you for your first 100 days.
I wanted to ask you a question.
Oh yeah, righto.
Yeah. I'm describing
you. Wasn't part of the contract.
No, it wasn't. I've been describing you, and I was on a meeting the other night where there was brethren from New Zealand, and they said, we talked about some of the things we're doing, and we got this FV News, and we get listed, 50 lodge meetings are listed there. And they said, oh, who's doing that? So we've got a media baron.
A media minnow.
A media baron is our superintendent of communication. There is some truth to that, isn't there? You are a media baron.
No, far from it. I'm a minnow. As well as being a very rough ashler. I publish community newspapers each week, and that's the area that I love being in. Real people, closest to the people.
Absolutely.
And there's large scope there for lodges to get free publicity in the papers that we do. We're covering about 2/3 of Melbourne, since
really
a large group of Melbourne papers closed in April, and when lockdown finishes, we'll finish the jigsaw there. So it's given us a great opportunity.
All of Melbourne. You'll cover all of Melbourne, plus some of the peri-urban municipalities like Murrindindi.
Yep. And that's our stronghold. We lived there for quite a while as well, and we'll get down the Mornington Peninsula as well. So there's big scope, but it's good. The things that we'll be able to do.
Actually. I'm a bit jealous of you. I always wanted to be the owner of the Latrobe Valley Express. I could produce my thoughts twice a week.
Well, the Hopkins family there have been great operators, but they're also now in partnership with the Lanyon group, and I think there's and Rural Press as well. They're a good operation. So, Richard, thank you very much for your first 100 days. Every best wish for the days that follow, and thank you for your dedication.
Can't wait for the next 100. Can't wait.
Well, we'll come back in another 100 days and have another talk and see how happy you are then. That'll be very close to Christmas.
I guess it will be. Yeah, right. It will be indeed.
This has been another episode of FV TV, and thanks to our Grand Master, Richard Elkington.
Thank you very much.